Hello everybody. Welcome to the 12th meeting of Bright Garden Voices. My name is Diego Arduan. I'm one of the co-organizers of this project. Bright Garden Voices is a grassroots initiative which provides a platform for constructive dialogue between Armenians and Azerbaijanis. We host online meetings where guests share their experience and ideas relating to the Azerbaijan-Armenian conflict or any other matter relating the two nations. Our meetings also include live interaction with our audience, and the meetings are recorded and made available on YouTube later and as a podcast. We are not affiliated or funded by any organization or government, and we do not purport to represent any nation, state, or group. Today, our collaborators, Aram Amirbekian and Turan Asgarova, will be joining me as co-hosts. So, Aram, if you would like to introduce yourself, and I will start also sharing the screen.
Thank you, Diego. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
My name is Aram Amirbekian, and I am one of the hosts of this meeting. I was born in Yerevan and have lived most of my life here. And around 2 years ago, before the 2020 war, I got interested and more interested in the peace process of Nagorno-Karabakh and peace activism in general. But I had been interested in politics probably since 2016. And after the war, I actually, like a month after the war, I started working as a journalist and worked for 2 years at a small Armenian news outlet. And additionally, I've also been a very huge Eurovision fan since 2006, pretty much since Armenia started participating. So yeah, that's it. And now, if Turana would like to introduce herself for a couple minutes.
Hi, my name is Turan Asgarova, and I live in Azerbaijan. I graduated from Baku State University and studied geography there. I love learning about politics, ethnic conflicts, and different cultures, and most importantly, my favorite, about languages. I joined Bright Garden Voices since 2022, but early 2022, but I was interested since the beginning of the project.
Thank you. So our meeting today is about Eurovision. Eurovision brings together people from all around the world with a message of love and peace, but politics always come into play. So today we wanted to discuss how does Eurovision relate to the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Can it bring people together, or is it just another stage for the conflict between both nations? We will now go with Aram to discuss the agenda for today's meeting.
Thank you. So let's move on to the agenda. At first, we'll have a discussion with our guests, Lucia and Narguiz, after which we will open the virtual floor to the audience for questions. And at the end of the meeting, we will have a few closing remarks. And the meeting is going to be recorded and made available online. If you don't want your real name on the record, you can use your first name only or a pseudonym. And now let's introduce our guests for today. First, Narguiz Birk-Petersen. She is a lawyer who currently resides in Dubai and works as vice president and general counsel at a global pharmaceutical company. However, in 2012, she was actually one of the hosts of Eurovision, which was held in Baku. And the same year, she also presented Baku's bid for the 2020 Olympics to the International Olympics Committee.
Dr. Lucia Babayants is a psychologist, professor, and singer-songwriter, and she was the intended participant from Armenia for the Eurovision held in Azerbaijan back in 2012. Born in Baku, Azerbaijan, she actually born in Baku, and she became a refugee during pogroms early 90s. She works in a different project supporting refugees and post-war population to heal from complex trauma. She also identifies herself as servant leader and believes serving by leading and leading by serving is the only type of leadership style that can actually heal our world. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
So, first question I want to ask to Narguiz. First, what does Eurovision mean to you? What role do you think it can have fostering better relation between countries?
Well, to me personally, it was an amazing kind of historic experience, right? I never really kind of dreamt of being able to do something like that, and when it happened, it just was something that yeah, I mean, it almost felt like a dream. Like it happened, and I came home then afterwards, and I was like, was this real, right? That was kind of my feeling, and it's still my feeling. Like when I look back at YouTube videos, I wonder a little bit, because my real life is so different from that world, that it just seems still like some sort of fairy tale dream. It was amazing. And that world, that Eurovision world, I think is, it is a fairy tale world, right? Like when you're in that world, it's kind of friendly and happy, and it's almost, and it sounds like a cliche, but like people, you know, hold hands and sing together. Like it's that kind of experience, and you know, people get together and party together. Nobody really cares so much where you're from, and you know, everybody wants to connect, right? And ideally in the real world as well, you would love to see that. I would love to see people seeking that connection with other people. In that world, that happens, right? So I think that, yeah, I mean, in terms of, I don't know, at least people who are exposed to that, I think it's very difficult to come out of that experience not being inspired by people, not feeling like we're all part of the same world, and not wanting to have that connection with people, right? So so I think it is a very positive event. I think it should bring people together, and I know it does bring the participants together, the people who are in it. They're in this world. They cannot, I mean, I'm still in contact with people who are working on this event from all over the world, right? So that you cannot walk out of there unaffected in a positive way.
Thank you for the answer, Narguiz. And I also want to address the same question to Lucia. What does Eurovision mean to you? What role do you think it can have fostering better relations between countries?
This is a great question, Turan. Thank you for asking. Before I even respond to it, let me just welcome also our lovely audience and Bright Garden Voices. Thank you for doing this project. I think Eurovision is a very fun and glamorous music festival. I really think that countries such as Armenia and Azerbaijan should not participate in any aggressive sports, but rather participate in Eurovision and music festivals and art competition, something that is non-aggressive, something that is more peaceful and more healing, considering the situation that we've been having for over 30 years now. However, I also want to say that I wish Eurovision was less transactional and you know, more concentrated on what is the situation in the world is happening. So basically, I wish that performers were doing some more work outside of Eurovision as well, because I personally, and this is my thing, it's very subjective what I'm saying right now. I don't even listen to singers who I know are not good human beings. Almost that when I listen to a song or to a person who sings about love, and if I know that person is not a good human being, I don't even listen to that person anymore. It's like the whole high is killed right there. And I do have some, I'm surrounded by a lot of musicians, Armenian musicians in particular, because you know, that's where I revolve in. And I know them personally as well, right? So when they release their albums, make music videos, 3-4 music videos a month, and then they sing about love, and I know that they go home, let's say, and abuse their wife, I'm not listening. Okay, so to me, it's very important for people to walk their talks. If you're singing about love, you better know what love is.
Thank you, Lucia, for the answer. And I want to ask you, could you share with us a little bit of your Eurovision journey? Why did you decide to be Armenia's representative? And how was that process and how it ended up happening?
So when Azerbaijan won in 2011, I knew that Armenia would not participate, that they are going to boycott it. And I wanted to de-escalate that. And I thought I did some major self-reflection, and I realized that I'm ready to face the shadows of my past. And I did some tremendous personal healing and have acquired the identity of a thriver at that time and still. And I decided that I can do it. You know, I'm not scared. I know I'm going there with a message of peace and message of love. And I was sure that God was with me and that it will work out. So I offered my candidacy and just went to sleep. In the morning, I'm waking up with like tons of requests for interview from all over the world. Europe, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia, like countless. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? So, and then immediately I got contacted by Armenian journalists saying, oh, Azeri journalists will be requesting interviews probably. Do not talk to them. Do not give them any interview. And I said, why? And they said, well, because they're going to turn your words around and switch it. And it's just going to be later, you won't be able to prove anything. So I said, don't worry, I know what I'm talking about and I know how I'm delivering it and I know the intention, so don't worry about it. So basically nobody was rejected. I gave interview to anybody who requested it, whether it was from Azerbaijan or from Armenia or from Turkey, from Argentina, everybody. And I think, and I actually continued giving those interviews for the entire year because to me, it was pure therapy. Okay, and was it always successful? Meaning that was I always able to build the connection that I ideally wanted? No, but during the times that I was, it was worth everything. Like for example, there was Vesti AZ, an Azeri newspaper, Turan. I'm sure you probably know it, and everybody heard in Azerbaijan about it. I had a great experience with them. Very professional, you know, they're respectful, absolutely no problems. Whereas some independent journalists from Azerbaijan, the situation was so bad, I was asking myself, I wonder why they still hold their journalist license, you know? So it was, you know, both sides of the coin. However, I haven't regretted a bit of even those negative experiences because I know that I planted some good seeds even in those people. And I know that maybe one day those seeds will show its results. I also wanted to redefine certain values during this whole Eurovision experience, such as what patriotism is, such as what authentic thriver identity is, what love is, and I thought maybe redefining those values will help in the process of reconciliation, in the process of self-reflection. For example, patriotism for me is someone who loves their country, someone who does good deeds for their country, but never at the expense of another country. So if you do adapt to that definition of patriotism, all of a sudden, a lot of things come into perspective, Well, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to continue also with Narguiz, pretty much in the same direction. Narguiz, you also mentioned that your experience during Eurovision 2012 was like a fairy tale. So I would like to ask you to tell us more about the journey. And I would like to ask, how was it like hosting the contest, and how the potential Armenian participation? Also, what did you think about the controversies surrounding it? And also, what did you think about the final withdrawal?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part. What did I think about final withdrawal of Armenia? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, the journey, I was invited for an audition 2 days before the audition was to be held. I was in Copenhagen at the time, and I thought, if I don't try it, I will not forgive myself. But again, I went in there thinking there's no way, there's just no way. But I went anyway because I just thought, well, I mean, like I have to try it. All my family friends thought I was nuts. Like, what are you doing? You have 2 children at home. You're just packing and leaving. It was just a lucky timing because we just moved from Moscow to Copenhagen. I wasn't working. I was just kind of settling the family in a new location, and so I could just take 2 days off and fly in Baku. I went for a go-see. I went on an audition. I had some previous television experience. I had modeling experience, so I came prepared. It was my book, and the way I would go for an audition. And I was asked to read a text in English. I edited it before reading it because there were some mistakes in the text, I remember. And and then I was told, well, I mean, if you're really interested in this, you'll have to stay here for like a month because there's going to be all these pre-events, and ultimately it's the EBU that's making a decision as to whether or not you're going to be hosting, right? So it's not purely a country decision. The European Broadcasting Union has to approve the host. And so after the audition, I went back, basically packed up for a month now, said goodbye to my children and came to Baku for a month, and participated in all these pre-events. There was a lot of press and promotional videos and drawings and all that. I was part of that. And I didn't actually, I found out, and it's not like it's for real, I didn't know what the situation, because there were 3 hosts. They were not confirming to us that we're actually hosting it. So I didn't know if they're just going to pick one of us or 2 of us and one is the backup, or they have a completely different candidate and we're just like a backup team. Like, I had no idea. I literally found out that I'm the host the day that everybody else found out. Like, they had a press conference and I was in the air with the rest of the team. And I landed, and just like with Lucia, like my phone was going berserk, right? Like, just people saying, congratulations, oh my God, like everybody's going nuts. And I was like, so that's how I found out that, yes, I now have been confirmed. They made it public. I hated the picture that they posted, so like there was like I had no say, right? Like they decided it was, I became a host. And yeah, and I mean, again, it was a completely different world, kind of like divorced from reality. They put us in a hotel. I mean, I had family there. Elgar and Leila also had family there, but they didn't want us kind of out with our family. They wanted us to be in that Eurovision world, which I think was a great idea, really. Because we're getting a lot of attention, and some of it wasn't that, always positive. Second of all, you just kind of needed to really focus. And for me, especially since this wasn't really my day job, and I wasn't, Leila is a pro. She's been doing hosting events, her whole professional career. That is her professional career. I was doing M&A deals a few months ago. So, like it took some time for me to feel as comfortable as I still didn't. So yeah, I mean, so basically that. I mean, we had a fantastic team working with us. We collaborated on writing the script. It was funny because the team was German. It was Brainpool, and the script writer was German. So we had these funny situations where he'd write something in English, and I'd say, look, you don't say that in English. That's not, like, he'd translate something like verbatim from German, and like, no, you don't say that. And he's like, what do you know? It's not your first language either. So we'd like walk around the set and find some Irish guy and be like, can you say that in English? Is that correct or not? And they would say, no, like, so I was right, actually, in that situation, that specific situation. But, so there was, we were wrapped up in writing the script and figuring out what we're going to look like. It was amazing, right? And then it finally went into the show and did that. In terms of Armenia's participation, I was actually trying to remember, because it was 10 years ago. I was trying. And you said, the question was posed about the controversy, and I was like, was there a controversy? Didn't they just withdraw on security grounds? Like, I didn't know what the controversy was. Lucia maybe can tell more about that. But to me, if I'm completely honest, I wasn't thinking that much about it at the time. If Armenia participated, great. I would, and I have no doubt that Lucia would have been safe and she would have been greeted. I mean, we've had international events where Armenian, athletes and people came to Azerbaijan, and there was never a problem, right? And I mean, the team there, I have zero doubt that she would have been treated, great. I mean, you're from Azerbaijan, you know how we are with guests. Like, if somebody comes as a guest, you just treat them right. That's just how it is. And so I have no doubt that if that was possible and she came to Azerbaijan, it would have been a good experience for her. And it's a shame that, Lucia, that we didn't get to meet 10 years ago. I think it would have been great. But I wasn't surprised that ultimately Armenia didn't join, right? Because of the situation, of the political situation. So I didn't at the time experience it as a controversy. I thought, well, I mean, it's not a surprise, right? Yeah, I can't say that I thought about it a whole lot at the time. I was far more concerned about not fainting on the stage, if I'm honest.
Of course. Thank you. Turan?
So Lucina talked a little bit about the song, and I just want to ask a follow-up questions about the song you wanted to participate with, Delicious Feeling, Call It Insane. Has some interesting lyrics. So, in a world where hatred lies, portrayed as sane, I'd rather be insane. Who cares about politics, please? To be in love and live at peace. Call it insane, I'd rather be insane all over again. You're you are loving me from A to Z. Loving me is a delicious feeling. Are these lyrics somehow connected to Armenia and Azerbaijan?
So, Turan, you know that one of the guidelines from Eurovision is that you cannot deliver a song or write a song that has a political message in it, right? So, answering your question, I would say that this song is about the relationship. Okay, it's about the relationship dynamic. Being a psychologist and being in the mental health profession for, I don't know, 8-9 years already, and at the same time being a songwriter, when I write a song, there are several messages, not just one. And when I write a song, people look at the song through their own frame of reference. So if somebody is seeing the relationship between Armenia and Azerbaijan in the song Delicious Feeling, Call It Insane, yeah, absolutely. If somebody is seeing a love message in it, 100%. All feelings are valid. This is how the song is written. I have a friend who recently confessed, this same song, I actually have a slow version of it, very like a Sade type slow version. I have a friend who recently confessed and said, you see it, if you only knew how many times I made love to my wife under your song, the same song. So you can look at it so many other ways, right? But the bottom line is that, yes, it is about relationship.
I think regardless what that lyric's about, it's beautiful. I think.
I agree.
Thank you.
And it's interesting, before when Armenia, actually, I want to reply to Narguiz, when Armenia refused participation, I was very sad, and I said, oh my God, it was such an opportunity to start civil communication and to kind of start the reconciliation process. And I was contacted by one of the newspapers, and they asked me, Lucia, would you still come if we invite you separately from Armenia? So now I'm entering this very, very delicate situation, right? Armenia has refused, but I have been offered an opportunity to actually go against Armenia's decision. So my answer was, if I knew that you're offering it to me because you want to see me there, but not because you just want to give a slap in the face to Armenian people, I would definitely come. But I don't think it's right to be mixed in this political power game. And I took a rain check. I said, I will come with my own book, maybe for book signing or something, separately from any Armenian influence, just me and you guys, and maybe a different project where I get the power to kind of deliver to you, not somebody else. So I still have that rain check that I might cash into.
All right, thank you. So I have a question to both of you actually now. Since the introduction of the juries in the contest, like the juries have been introduced in 2009. And since the introduction of the juries, almost all of the jurors from both Armenia and Azerbaijan have been marking each other down in the last place in the finals and the semifinals. So this has been a topic that has been discussed quite a lot. I wanted to ask, what do you think is behind this behavior that is clearly going unpunished, like it keeps happening every year? And how do you think it could be fixed? Maybe we can start with Narguiz.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle to make a big deal out of this, to be honest, because there's a lot of countries participating. Like, I mean, is that really a surprise? Like, are we really shocked that the two countries that are at war with each other don't give, like, the population don't give a lot of marks to the other? I mean, I think that's not a surprise, right? I mean, we see how countries vote, right? All the Scandinavians vote for the Scandinavians, you know, Armenia votes for Greece, Greece votes for Armenia. Like, I mean, there is this affinity. I mean, there's politics, I want to say, in voting, but it's not politics in the sense that, you know, there is a politician behind it, like arranging it all. But people, I mean, you know, we feel close to Turks. We will give them high marks, you know, like people like Russians, some people like Russians, some people don't like Russians, you know, the ones that don't like Russians give them low marks, the ones that like Russians give them high marks. You know, some people like Ukraine very much. They, you know, it's like, it's not, I mean, I don't think it's a big issue. It's a big drama, right? I mean, really, Eurovision is a fun contest, and you will see that kind of stuff there. It's people, I mean, Lucia is a psychologist, it's a human psychology, right? It's not surprising. And I don't see it as this huge issue that needs to be, you know, there's like this, two countries have far bigger fish to fry than what points they give each other on Eurovision. And I think with time, I mean, again, and you see people like, for example, during Junior Eurovision on Twitter, and, you know, it could also be my circle kind of people that I follow and kind of become Twitter friends, right? Amongst Azerbaijanis, people saying, oh my God, Armenia has a great song. What a, you know, like, good luck to Milena, you know, like a lot of people were very excited. It was a great song, you know, like, so let's not make a drama out of this situation, right? If the countries, if there is more contact between people, if the relationship improves, hopefully this will also improve. It will not improve dramatically because Armenians will still like the Greeks more than the Azerbaijanis, but maybe they will not vote them last, right? They will, maybe will they bump it up against, I don't know, somebody else who they like even less. You know, it's gonna happen. You know, it's going to be a little bit better. It's going to be a little worse. It happens to all the countries. They do that. And what happens ultimately, that if you really have a really great song, then all the other countries that feel neutral, they don't have such strong feelings about a particular country, give them points, and then the best song wins. And we see that happening over and over again, right? So it's okay. It's, I mean, I wouldn't dramatize it. I would just say with time, hopefully, if the relationship between the country improves, the scores in Eurovision will also improve.
Thank you. Lucia, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I have a lot to add to this. So I agree with Narguiz in the sense that people behave like people, and they're driven by their subjectivism and very predictive behavior of voting for their own and discounting the other candidates due to the political situation. However, now I'm going to put my psychologist hat, Narguiz. But however, that is a symptomatic behavior. And I do want to talk about this because I think this specifically, this behavior needs to stop. So when you look at the continuum of, I'll explain why they're doing that, because we need to understand why they're doing it, right? So when you look at the continuum of victim, survivor, and thriver, all people in the world are going to be somewhere on that continuum, somewhere, okay? So who are victims? Victims are people who are making decisions based on fear. Who are the survivors? Survivors are those who are making decisions based on achieving a specific goal at any cost. Who are the thrivers? Thrivers are those who survived, who experienced tremendous growth, who became servant leaders. And this is an aha moment right here. True thrivers are those who are capable of making integrity-driven decisions, even at own expense. So those people who are voting for another country just because it's a country that they're friends with, where do you think they end up on this continuum? Victims, survivors, or thrivers? They're not thrivers. They're stuck in the survivor's phase right there, because they're meeting their need at any cost. That is a symptomatic behavior. That is a behavior that causes later character flaws and diagnosis of personality disorders. So I think we actually need to bring it into awareness level, that particular behavior. And I do think we need to work on ourselves not to do that. If I'm voting, I would be voting based on who is really performing well. Whose song do I really like, whether it's a Turkish, Azeri, or any, it doesn't matter. I won't be able to sleep if I would downgrade that person, because that is this moral compass you have in you when you become an authentic thriver. You make right decisions even at own expense, and it becomes a personality trait. Actually, my book is coming out in a few months, and I'm translating it into Armenian, Russian, and Azeri. So hopefully when it's all done, I can bring that to our people.
Thank you for both. So my question is both of you as well. When it's really not a big deal at first, the countries voting for each other, rival countries, but at the same time, when it's Armenia and Azerbaijan, it's sensitive. So I'm sorry. In the last years, Armenia and Azerbaijan have been involved in different controversies around Eurovision about people from Armenia in Azerbaijan, people voting for. I'm sorry. About people voting for Armenia and Azerbaijan being harassed. I actually remember the news. They showed how many people voted for Armenia. They had that information. I was really scared, honestly. So accusing each other of stealing melodies, controversies around Nagorno-Karabakh, and much more. Yet in the last two editions, we saw Armenian and Azerbaijan participants greeting and wishing each other best luck. Also, congratulations each other. Despite this, unfortunately, Azerbaijan isn't taking part of junior Eurovision Song Contest this year. What do you think could happen so that one country would participate in the event hosted by the other, and how could Eurovision become a stage for togetherness and rather than a conflict? So we can start from Lucia.
So what I think needs to happen, instead of investing in Eurovision, they need to invest in psychologists and help people and countries heal this trauma. I always said I gave it. I gave tons of interviews, and I remember I know that Azerbaijani press knows about it because they asked me that question, and I've always said that this problem cannot be fixed by politicians. It cannot be fixed by military. It cannot be fixed by diplomats. They all failed, and we see the results. It can only be fixed by psychologists. It can only be fixed by mothers. It can only be fixed by authentic thrivers who will get together like today for a conversation. Not by general population who are, composed of all the symptoms of trauma. When trauma is present, you don't introduce triggers without giving a person tools to process it. So that healing needs to take place. I want to share that, I'm talking about, oh, I feel like I have identity of authentic thriver, Well, how did I get there? I really got out of my comfort zone to be there. I did something no other Armenian would do. I walked into a mosque. Do you know what it takes for an Armenian who already comes from a transgenerational trauma back from 1915, because it's passed on to us, and we're not able to grieve appropriately? Do you know? And then the trauma is added during the Sumgait events and the Baku pogroms. At 9-year-old, when my father teaches me how to kill a person who's supposed to walk into the door because that person came to take my life, to rape me, to kill me. Do you know what it takes for a 9-year-old child? So I grew up with that. The fact that I chose the profession of being a psychologist is not by coincidence. I was searching for answers. And I realized that I'm getting these degrees and I'm going to be a mental health worker, but then if an Azeri patient will come to me or a Turkish patient, I will be triggered. I won't be able to help that person. In fact, I would get very hostile because of what happened. So I said, this is not acceptable. I need to do something with it. And one day, one of my friends, I used to work in the hospital, one of my friends who was a doctor there, he was a Muslim, and he said, Lucy, I want to send you to somewhere, and maybe that's going to be an answer to your healing. I said, where is it? And he says, it's a mosque. I said, are you kidding me? What mosque? I'm a born again Christian, I'm Armenian. What mosque are you talking about? He said, well, it's not, it's a specific mosque. It's called MPV, Muslims for Progressive Values. It's in Los Angeles. And he said, the imam is a woman. I said, really? So I walk into the mosque and I see all these people sitting on the rug with their shoes off. So I walk in, I take my shoes off, I sit in there with them. All of them are Muslims. And I just sit and I pray to Christ. And I say, God, please help me to forgive. And please open their ears so they can hear what I'm about to say. And after that prayer, there's like so many people from Muslims from different parts of the world, but only one of them was from Turkey. And I went and I sat right next to her. It's not a coincidence, okay? So when we finished everything, she looked at me and said, oh, hi, you're new here. I've never seen you. Oh, yeah, this is my first time. And where are you from? I said, I'm Armenian. And her eyes goes like this. And then she said, Armenian? Are you married to a Muslim? I said, no. Then she's like, even more bigger eyes. Are you planning to change your religion? And I'm like, absolutely not. And she's like, what are you doing here? And I said, I came to forgive. And she started crying. The next words out of her mouth was, I'm so sorry for everything that happened. And here we are standing, crying, looking at each other. We became great friends. When she said, I'm so sorry for what happened, it felt like the entire Turkey apologized right there. And it took only one person to get this healing. After that, I was able to see my Muslim patients, my Turkish patients, my Azeri patients. I was requested by them. But in order for me to do this, I really had to get out of my comfort zone. And I think the healing between these two countries, the secret to it is in that. I'm not saying that now Azeris should run to church or Armenians should run to a mosque. No, but I'm saying there's a unique presentation for everyone to heal their soul and to take the responsibility for what happened, to engage in self-reflection, and to finally process this trauma. You can't shove it up under the carpet. There's a huge elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, and you can't cover it by Eurovision songs. So the fact that Azerbaijan is not participating this year in Armenian Eurovision Children's Contest, I think that's a very good decision. I agree with the decision that Azerbaijan has made, because there's a huge trauma. And this trauma needs to be addressed and processed with professionals. Thank you.
And the same questions. Thank you for the answer, Lucia. It's really interesting. And I want to address the same question to Narguiz.
Yeah, before I address the question, let me just kind of comment, reflect on what Lucia just said. I think that you're absolutely right? We have a generation, and I suspect we're more or less from the same generation, that has been incredibly traumatized by that conflict, by the First World War and everything that happened there. And we've had some contact with each other because, I mean, as part of the souvenir when we were growing up, Armenians lived in Azerbaijan and, but I think that by the time it happened, I'm trying to think what I was about 13, 14, something like that, 15, during the conflict. I cannot imagine kind of experiencing what you've experienced, right? And having to leave your home and that, and it's awful and horrible. And I think it's, yeah, I mean, it's for a 9-year-old child to live through that. It's terrible. And it happened, I mean, the whole generation, it was trauma for you. It was also trauma for me, living in Azerbaijan and watching refugees coming into Baku, going door to door, telling their stories, right? And I left Azerbaijan at the age of 17, quite angry as well. And I remember that when my son was born, he was about months or 2 months old, and there was an anniversary of Hocalı. I was with him in the little, like a jumper thing in front of Armenian embassy protesting, right? And I would say that, I was extremely emotional and traumatized and very, very kind of, it was really black and white for me, that conflict. And I had a teacher, I think, in my life that was Armenian, who I really loved. And when I went to the States and went and visited her, and she was married to a Jewish guy, and I knew their whole family. But I can't say, but we never touched on what has happened, right? So I went to her as somebody I knew and loved as my teacher, and she treated me as her pupil and a friend of her son's, and that was the level on which we interacted. And I think that over time I have lived around the world, and I had an experience with Armenians. I've lived and worked in Russia, where I had Armenian colleagues. And I think we are lacking, like the experience that you described in the mosque. That's what we need, right? These people need connection and empathy for each other. You don't have to, I think people think to empathize with someone, you have to agree with them on their political views, on the fact that they're right about something, about how they're feeling, that there could be right or wrong feelings. And now I understand that you don't have to have empathy for a person. You don't have to agree with a person to have an empathy for him or her. And I see that happening again and again, even in these online interactions with people that could be incredibly vicious, right? Like unbelievably dehumanizing, everybody hates everybody in Twitter. Diego, I'm sure you're part of these discussions a lot. You've been exposed to that too. But even there, I think when people reach out to one another as people, something happens. That's why I think this initiative is so great, because and that's why you guys have been attacked so much, Diego and the team, right? Because it takes away that narrative from people that the other side are animals. They're not humans. They don't have the same values. They don't, because if you feel like that about the other side, then everything goes, right? And that works for ultra-nationalist narrative. For those people who want to keep the degree of this conflict high, that's excellent, like for hatred. And having forums like this where people talk and share experiences and empathize and don't always agree with each other, shows that we're all humans. On both sides, we're humans. We can agree, we can disagree, but we're humans. We need more of that. That's why I think Eurovision, this forum, whatever forum that you have where people get together and touch each other and hear each other and have an opportunity to empathize with each other is a positive thing, right? That would help people heal, or at least stop hating each other so viciously. I find it's very disturbing that there's so much hate, about the controversies, I was thinking that I find all of this stuff, right, so heavy, kind of, and a little bit tiring, like this thing where, we choose Eurovision as a forum to trigger each other, or, and adults, like full-on adults, act as children, and children show us what the adults should behave like. So what happened last year in Junior Eurovision, where two children came together and hugged each other and wished each other the best. I mean, I wish a lot of people on Twitter and in press would watch that and learn a little bit, right? That was a lesson in maturity that seems to be lacking in the society currently, was Armenian and Azerbaijani. Like these events, there's a Formula One in Azerbaijan. Oh my God, this is, like, if there isn't 50 comments from Armenians talking about how terrible Azerbaijan is under that, that's not, like, every time there's a positive news about the other country, for some reason, people feel that it's necessary to come in and say something negative. Like, this is really not the forums. Like that doesn't solve anything, that doesn't prove anything to anyone. It looks horrible for anyone from outside this conflict when they watch it. They think this is crazy. Like, why are these people commenting on this completely unrelated? I mean, whatever it is, like completely a movie, a concert, like it's, come on now. I mean, really, it doesn't have to be this way. We need to create opportunities for people to talk to each other. And we need to, all of us need to try and reach out where we can. All of us need to try and express empathy where we can. All of us need to try and listen when we can. I think it's very difficult. I mean, I realize I'm super privileged. I've had an opportunity to live abroad and have exposure to lots of different people. I mean, I think Lucia is the same. I think it's very difficult for us to put a hat of someone who just lost somebody in the war, right? But I will tell you that a lot of times those people are actually a lot less militant than people that grew up in California and have not stepped their foot in the region and have no idea what's really happening, right? So yeah, I mean, I agree with Lucia that it's probably the best that Azerbaijan didn't go to Eurovision, to Junior Eurovision this year. I understand why. Had I been a parent, I wouldn't want my child to go. I mean, I'd be concerned for safety, and even if not physical safety, I'd be concerned for psychological safety, because people are so vicious right now around this conflict, and these are children. You know, so if Lucia could, she's an adult, she could go into Azerbaijan, and even if she, as I said, I think it would have been great. I think it would have been a great experience, but she might not believe that. She might think, and she would probably prepare herself for something nasty to happen, or at least for somebody to say something nasty, right? But she's an adult, she can take that. We wouldn't want a child to experience that. And you can't control everyone, and everybody, right? So I wouldn't allow my child to go. I don't think there's a parent in Azerbaijan that would want their child to go. So for that reason, psychological safety, physical safety, people need to heal. These nations need to heal before we can do things like this, right? Before our kids can go to Armenia and participate in Junior Eurovision and vice versa. Eurovision is a great event. It does bring people together. And I think that if people were put into that world, it would work out great, right? But Eurovision will not solve the issue between the two nations, right? The Eurovision, maybe it would help two people to connect, like it did in Junior Eurovision last year, right? But we need nations to connect. We need people in both countries to connect, and we need to think about how to do that. Maybe once people start living closer together and start living as neighbors again, this will happen again. I saw an interview recently with I think an Armenian journalist going and talking to people in like a border region with Azerbaijan and interviewing them about how they felt about the conflict and the war. And all of them saying, we want peace. We don't want any more war. I don't know who's asking for war. We've lived with these people before. We can continue living. And these are people who are affected. Like, these are people who live there, right? That feel that they want this just to stop. And I truly believe that people are people on both sides, right? So we all want the same thing. Are there crazies on both sides? Of course. Are they somehow more visible and vocal everywhere on social media? Of course, yeah. Like, I mean, if I were to make conclusions about Armenian nations by the nasty comments I get on Twitter, that wouldn't be a very good lens to look at the nation. But I truly believe that probably the majority of people are normal and they're not like that, right? It's the same for Azerbaijan. There are good and bad people, and we need to just realize that. We need to have this human connection. We need to work together. We need to participate in projects together. We need to have discussions like this. We need to shoot films together. I mean, we need more connection between the two nations.
That's great. Thank you. That was a really great input and a really nice answer to the question. Now, Diego, I believe that's all for the Q&A, right?
Yes, we're done with the first part of the meeting. Thank you all for your very interesting insights. For the following part, we invite the audience to participate. They can send questions to me on the chat, so I can see all the questions and I can say who can ask the question. We invite you to ask the question with your microphone and camera. But also I'm also an Eurovision fan, just like Turan and Aram. So I think we also have some questions that we will ask ourselves as well. So I will stop sharing the screen for this last part. Just give me a second. There we go. So yes, if you have any questions, you can send them to me privately, or you can just tell me you want to ask the question and we will let you ask. I just want, while we receive the questions, I just want to make a reflection maybe on what Lucia said, and then Narguiz follow up about going out of the comfort zone. I think that's really interesting in the sense that, you know, if the status quo is not peace, you know, it's something in between or whatever, then the only way you can go out of the status quo is by not being comfortable. Because I mean, by definition, the status quo is just a status of comfort where nothing changes, nothing happens. So if for her it meant going to a mosque, for somebody else it might mean something different. For some people, it's just engaging with the other side that's already going out of the comfort zone. So I think that's a very interesting reflection on, like, you know, whatever it takes to slowly solve the conflict or the internal traumas or contradictions what might have, it will always imply getting out of a comfort zone. It will never be easy. It will always be a little bit, it will take some courage from you, and, you know, wanting to step out of your comfort to have a conversation with the other person, to have a contrast of opinions. So yeah, I think that was very interesting. So I can start with one of my questions very briefly. I just wanted to ask you, Lucia, why is the song not available on Spotify? I really like it. So I wanted to know, is there some copyright issues or what's going on there?
So I'm going to do some self-disclosure. I was born without that part of the brain that is responsible for technology, social media, promoting yourself, having Twitter accounts, and you name it. Okay, I do not know how to do that. It's embarrassing to admit, but I'm just, you know, I freak out. I'd rather write another dissertation than to operate an Instagram page for some reason. So I need to take care of that. I probably need to hire somebody who can make that happen. However, Diego, I was sitting and I was like, I wanted to converse with Narguiz and I wanted to respond to what she said, but I couldn't. I'm just going to zip it and I'm going to wait until you're going to give me a green light to do that.
I mean, sure, go ahead.
Can I? Okay. So Narguiz, what happened in Kocaeli is horrible. What happened in Kocaeli should have never happened. All these people, all these children, it's a pain that, believe me, I know how you feel. Okay. And I know that, I think right now, and I do want to know your opinion about that. I think if we are adapting the identity of thrivers, and again, thrivers are talking, making right decisions even at own expense, that's the definition. I think we cannot talk about Kocaeli if we're not talking about Sumgait, because Sumgait happened before Kocaeli. Okay, so if we are entering the space, if we are talking transparency, if we are talking the inconvenient truth, then we need to always, when we talk about Sumgait or we talk about Kocaeli, when we talk about Kocaeli, we talk about Sumgait. Okay. Because it's the same trauma. If I have two patients in my office, two mothers or relatives of these two events, I guarantee you they're going to be having the same symptoms. And also I wanted to mention something about empathy. When you said cognitive, you know, when you said we don't need to agree, we can still be empathic. That is true. That is called cognitive empathy, when you understand how the person feels. But there is two types of empathy. The other one is emotional empathy, when you actually feel what the person is feeling. And I think as people who are trying to make a difference, and I know all of us here, even our viewers who came in today, they're also part of the same team, people who want to make a difference and want to resolve this conflict. I think What we need to do on an individual level, when let's say the Zoom is over, is to work on ourselves to have more emotional empathy. Because I think that is what's truly going to make a difference when you actually feel the pain of the person. I really like a lot of things you said, Narguiz, and I'm very sorry that I didn't meet you 10 years ago. I think we would have had an amazing time somewhere in the restaurant or in the bar after the Eurovision was over. But now it's here.
Thanks, Lucia. I mean, look, I mean, I want to avoid doing what happens on Twitter a lot in this types of conversation, because somebody says I've experienced trauma, and then the other says, oh, but our side experienced trauma as well. And then the other said, no, but there was a trauma before that trauma. And our side says, no, there was a trauma before that. So it goes like, you know, oh, Hojali, oh, Sumgait, and then, oh, Azerbaijanis that were expelled from Armenia, and right? Like this becomes the discussion. It doesn't matter, right? This war produced a generation that's been traumatized. It's not a competition, and it's not about finding a time, like who started it. It's not about that. It's not about who started it. It started. Now we have people who feel the way they feel, and people are continuing to die because people feel that somehow a trauma 100 years ago justifies Hojali. And there are people who say that, wait, there was an Armenian genocide, thus Hojali is okay. I'm not saying you're saying that, but there are people who go that far and say this justifies that. And there's people on the other side, there was Hojali, thus committing war crimes, and this war is okay. You know, we need to stop. Like, to me, let's not try to compete on who's more traumatized. We're all traumatized. My people are traumatized, your people are traumatized in different ways at different time. The reality is that trauma caused us now, you know, it can cause this trauma to continue, because it can continue the killing and can continue dehumanizing each other. It, you know, it can continue if we don't start healing now, if we don't start fixing ourselves and stop referencing this and thinking about how something, like I feel that everything I do and I say defines who I am, and everything that somebody else does and says defines who they are. So I'm not going to compete in badness with someone else, right? I would much rather compete in goodness with somebody else. You know, also with these, you know, with Azerbaijan and Armenia, right? Like, there's this silly contest around, you know, I don't know, Eurovision and who gives each other lower grounds, or, you know, who's one-ups each other. I wish they would compete on GDP per capita. I can get behind that competition. Let's compete on that as two countries, right? Who's going to have a better GDP per capita? Who's going to reduce the rates of domestic abuse in the country? Let's come to these things. If we want to compete as two countries, let's do that, right? Like, let's stop competing on which one of us is more traumatized, which one of us is better, kinder, and, you know, in words, right? Let's just kind of try to, I mean, it's easy for you and I think, because I consider myself privileged. I think you're also, just by virtue of your education and where you live, you're also privileged, right? So we have this, and also our age, I think, also makes a difference, right? With time we become hopefully wiser. And it's not easy to take that and say, okay, like, now I expect all the people in Azerbaijan to feel the way I feel. But to the extent that we have influence within our circle, maybe a little wider circle on Twitter, or maybe a little wider circle in the country, like, we should try to use that and for positive, right? And I remember after Eurovision, actually, as I said, because I had experience with Armenia, so I had Armenian colleagues, and And I thought, well, can I use this experience to somehow to tell positive stories, right? Like I also read the story, I think that Onik wrote at the time about Armenians and Azerbaijanis living in Georgia together, you know, and I'm like, I'm sure there are more stories like that. I'm sure there are, you know, because when people, like, we're a lot more similar than we think. I know some people say that Armenians are Christian Azerbaijanis and vice versa, right? We're a lot more similar than we think. And I think that when people get together and actually do interact, that I'm sure there are a lot of great stories that could be told. And I thought, well, it would be nice to create like a website or something at the time, you know, where people just come in and tell positive stories about it, because there is so much garbage out there about how horrible we've been to each other and what this Armenian neighbor did to this aunt and that what other, you know, like all of that crap is out there and people talk about it all the time. There aren't enough positive stories, right? So I thought, what if we create a forum where people can just tell positive stories, like good experiences with one each other? I have positive stories. I worked with Armenians and it was a positive experience. You know, I can talk about that, you know, and then maybe somebody else can. And I had an Armenian colleague that it wouldn't be fun to have that, like him and I would create this thing where people come in and, you know, so I shared that idea. I remember at the time with my friends and family, they said, no, don't even, you know, don't, like, you're going to be, the other side is not going to like it. And, you know, you're going to be attacked on both sides. So I kind of, you know, packed up that idea and said, okay, fine. But I think that we need to try to somehow use our experiences, use our knowledge to influence people, at least that we can influence, to move things forward a little bit.
Narguiz, I would like to actually respond to what you just said. Your version of healing is not possible. This is why this conflict has lasted over 30 years. This is what the governments were doing. Trauma works in a specific, very specific way. And this is very clinical, what I'm going to share with you right now. But there's no other way around it. When somebody just got slaughtered and killed and you want to tell positive stories, it's shoving the thing under the carpet. It's not addressing the big elephant. Trauma doesn't work like that. I know when I have a complex trauma in my office, a person who experiences it, there's even exercise we use that is called empty chair. We put a person who hurt my patient in that empty chair so that that dialogue has to happen, because this is what the healing is from trauma. You cannot just ignore it and say 1915 didn't happen or let's forget about it. 1.5 million people. We can't forget about it. We need appropriately grieve that experience. You know, we're experiencing shame and guilt because we haven't grieved. And there are so many, and this is right now, I highly suggest you to read the book that is going to come up, because you will understand, and I know you're going to look at this whole experience from different perspectives. Because I'm being very objective. Azerbaijani people have went through trauma, same as Armenians, and they're contributing to each other's symptoms. So this can be solved only through dialogues, quality dialogues, empathic dialogues. Not the worst thing you can do is to say, don't pay attention. Let's just concentrate on positive. That is dismissing. So I wish it was that easy, Narguiz. I wish that was, I would, you know, I wish it was that formula, because that's a shortcut. Let's forget about the past. But do you know that people who are stuck in the past, they have depression. People who are stuck in the future, they have anxiety. Okay, so you need to process that. And trauma will never allow our countries to move forward. So I think we need to have that courage to understand that this dialogue might not need to happen. And what needs to happen during this dialogue is responsibility taking, is the inconvenient truth, and truly being empathic, not just cognitively, but emotionally empathy. So however we're going to arrive with that, that is a subject to a lot of Azerbaijani psychologists and Armenian psychologists and American psychologists coming together to come up with this formula. And this is why I said that's the solution for this healing to occur. And I believe that Azerbaijan has a huge future, same as Armenia. And I believe that Azerbaijan has a huge purpose, but it's never going to be done at the expense of Armenia. It's just not going to work.
Thank you all for your inputs. So in order for this also to kind of, for other people to have the chance to ask questions as well, and for this to not to become like a dialogue between us as well, maybe I'll ask some questions that I saw from one of our collaborators, I believe. He was asking, he was asking about specifically cultural projects that have been happening in the past, or attempts of cultural projects rather that have been happening in the past. And he specifically mentioned Georgi Vanyan's name, who tried to organize a Azerbaijani film festival years ago, and it of course didn't go as planned. So his question is, do you know any artists or people in the sphere of arts, not just music, but literature, theater, cinema, who have been trying to, or could try to actually organize joint projects, or talk about the war, or talk about peace building in a manner that will somehow improve the relations between the two nations, because things are obviously easier to understand when they are they're given to us through art. So I would like to ask if you know any artists, or if you have heard any projects, or if you think those projects could happen. Thank you. And maybe Narguiz, you can start.
Unfortunately, I'm not from that world, right? So I'm not friends with a lot of artists. I'm a big fan of Georgi Vanyan's as a person, and his, you know, and his mission and what he felt. And I think that I hear Lucia, and I think we disagree, right, on the approach here, because Georgi Vanyan had that vision, right? He was trying to humanize us to one another by creating that contact, and by saying, look, let's not, you know, because like translating what you just said, I think there's personal therapy, even in personal therapy though, that, you know, sometimes it's not possible to, you know, people, when people hurt each other, and both sides see themselves as a victim, right? And people hurt each other. It's not always possible to get them to see that they hurt the other person, right? And then, or not possible to, yeah, I mean, that it can go on forever. It's one side saying, no, but you hurt me first, and you hurt me stronger, and you hurt me 2 times, and you hurt me 3 times, and, you know, and then it can go on forever, even with people. Now you translate, you take that and you put it on a nation scale, right? And how do you get a nation, a whole nation, to agree? And, you know, and I think that, I think this thing where we're expecting the other to say, the other country to say, it's just not going to happen, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think this translates in on a national level, right? And that's why I think that, to me, all of this, and I think kind of more mature discussion and like looking at all this a little bit from high level, can happen once people stop hating each other. And to stop hating each other, we need contact. And, you know, and I wish there were more projects in art, in theater, I wish there were more projects that just brought people together, because the more people there are that know each other as people, just as people, don't agree with each other, think that the other one is totally wrong about, you know, but they know each other as people, they sit across the table, they break the bread. I think it's going to have a huge impact, because people can separate between political beliefs and a human being. It's possible to make that distinction. I know people who supported President Trump. I thought it was crazy. Like, I was shocked, to be honest, that they did, right? But I knew these people, they were good people, right? There was nothing wrong with these people. They just had beliefs that were dramatically different from my beliefs, right? I didn't start hating them because of that. I didn't start thinking that they're less than me because of that, because I already knew them as people, right? So I think once you get to have this human connection and understand that there is a person on the other side of the table, on the other side of the border, because it's his own problem, she's her own problem, it's her own trauma, and then I think that changes the lens a little bit. Then you can start, yeah, maybe I don't agree with him but I can see how he can, you know, then it's like, it starts turning a little bit like an iceberg or a Titanic, right? It's not gonna like, you know, now we all sit down and we say, okay, I'm sorry we did this, and we're sorry you did this, you know, like, it's just not gonna happen. I mean, we see it all the time. You know, it's constant. No, you did this, and now you did this before, and then that was worse than this, and you know, how can you compare? You know, like I'm so tired of these discussions, really. You know, like, let's try to just be people. I mean, let's try to see that there's a human on the other side, maybe with a different opinion, with their own trauma, and I think once these opportunities are created, we'll have a better outcome.
Narguiz, I actually agree the analogy you brought. How do we generalize that experience from therapy room healing between one person and now towards the nation, right? That's a great analogy. There is actually a way how to do that. We need to stop our children, stop teaching them hatred from schools. Okay, I'm sure you've seen videos of teachers teaching in the appropriate context since early age. We need to incorporate a class of values from first grade to the last grade, which I actually offered to the current Pashinyan's administration, the whole program about it. And they loved it. They're, oh, this is so great. This is so great. We're going to do it. And they dragged it for a year until they betrayed the whole country. You know? So there is a way to do it. It just needs to be done. It needs to be taught in schools to our children. Love, integrity needs to be taught.
I agree. At least hate has to be taught. At least let's start with that.
I want to ask you a question, Narguiz. How did you feel when an Armenian validated your pain about Kocaeli? How did you feel?
I mean, it feels good in a sense that I think that invalidating these type of things, again, is yeah, I don't understand how people do that, to be honest. Saying that this didn't happen, or yeah. So thanks.
No, I didn't say it for you to say thanks. but I just wanted you to express your feeling, how you felt, because I think there's a huge healing in validation. I got it in that mosque, so I wanted to give it back. Okay, had I not experienced it myself, maybe I wouldn't even know. So I think the solution of this conflict has to do a lot with validating each other's pain. And in order to do that, we can't pretend that it didn't happen. We need to get courage to face it, just like we're facing each other right now. Nobody's dead. Nobody's planning to commit suicide. Nobody's attacking anyone. Even if we have different approaches, different opinions, it's okay. It's normal.
And following what I said before, if we feel a little bit out of our comfort zone, it means we're doing something right.
Yes. It's perfect.
And so we have a couple of questions. One the person can't ask it, so I'll ask it myself. It's to Lucia. It says, how can we connect with you if you don't have any social media?
Oh, I do have social media. Just I'm an old-minded person. Facebook is the easiest way. Lucia Moon. And by the way, I do, in my future, I actually do plan to launch a project for Armenian and Azeri mothers to process trauma and complex PTSD. It's the same symptoms, it's the same pain. So I'm helping Armenians. We have launched a project with Armenian University. Aram, you would know this, maybe Mankavajakan Hamasaran. So we partnered up with them to deliver healing. I do want to do the same thing for Azeri mothers.
And
maybe not. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucia. So, but wait, so how they can find you?
Lucia Moon, Facebook.
Lucia Moon on Facebook, okay. And then Ricardo, I wrote you back, but I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you can talk, but you said that, okay, your master thesis was the analysis of voting patterns between Armenia and Azerbaijan and Russia during Eurovision and the effects of the war in Eurovision. So maybe would you like to chime in and share a little bit about your studies and some of your just reflections, maybe not a question if you want to. Ricardo, I don't know if you can.
Hey, could you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, first of all, thank you all for these great talks. I've sent to you in the chat that is the first time that I saw a good debate about the effects of Nagorno-Karabakh war in the Eurovision Song Contest. It was great. Congratulations to you all. It was very, very interesting. I have a question to you all regarding the Azerbaijan withdrawing on the Junior Eurovision this year. I don't know, but this withdrawal.
All of us can answer this question.
Sorry?
All of us can answer this question.
Oh, okay. Can we see as a sign of goodwill of Azerbaijani government if Azerbaijan could participate of the Junior Eurovision this year?
I guess I'll try to answer it, right? As I said, I mean, in the ideal world, Ricardo, that would be possible. But we have to remember these are children, and I think it makes it very. You know, like you have to. Yeah, it's a, you know, if these countries start participating in events in each other, and we do, right? In sporting events, I think Armenia and Azerbaijan have been hosting each other, so these things do happen. But I personally, I always take the well-being of children above anything else or a political agenda, and I wouldn't want a child go there and experience trauma. And frankly, if something like that did happen imagine the resonance and the impact actually on this conflict, the potential negative consequences actually for between people. Because if something bad happened to the kid, then, you know, Armenians, Azerbaijans, we're very protective of our children, right? You know, people will not forget it, and it would feed into hatred. It would make it worse. So I think the risks are too high, both from personal perspective, from that child's perspective, but also I think the potential negative impact for relationships between countries. I mean, we can't risk, there's already, like, you know, Lucia, correct me if I'm wrong, they say for each negative experience, you need 7 positive experiences to cancel it out, right? Now we have a completely different ratio. We have way too many negative experiences and not enough positive ones. So there was a high risk that there would be a negative experience there. And I think it was best that Azerbaijan didn't participate, actually.
I would actually like to add something. I agree with Narguiz, and I would also like to mention that when it comes to safety, Eurovision has been hosted by many countries throughout the years, but I mean, they're of course taking safety really seriously, but also there have been multiple incidents of people coming onto the stage, like people coming onto stage and interrupting performances. Once even like one person took the microphone from the performer back in 2018, I believe. So anything can happen. And I feel like specifically for like if an event is hosted in Armenia or in Azerbaijan, as Nargiz mentioned, the risks are too high. Even in the adult contest, I would say the risks are too high, because right now after the war there has been like a border crisis for like almost 2 years, and the emotions are high in both countries. So I feel like a better start, like what happened last year between the participants of Armenia and Azerbaijan, you know, those children hugging each other. I think that was a good start. I think a better start is if Armenians and Azerbaijanis actually, like, if the delegations talk to each other in other countries, and then when we feel like we're ready to do that, we can also host each other, because Eurovision has been politicized. So if Azerbaijanis come to Armenia or Armenians go to Azerbaijan, it's going to be politicized as well. That's what I wanted to say.
I'm sorry, is there any possibility that I can also add something?
Sure.
I'm sorry for the noise in the background, but what I can say that my television is not that interested in Junior Eurovision. And this year, after the Armenia won the contest in France, the representative of my television actually announced that they are really interested in participating, going to Armenia, but unfortunately it was a dead end. The reason is that there are not many actually kids that really interested going to contest, and only there are, you know, we don't have that much, you know, the big market when it comes to the kids. And when we actually look at our history at Junior Eurovision, we're not that successful. And the TV channel was like did their best, I believe, but they didn't actually find any kid and their family who's actually willing to go to Armenia. So that was one of the reasons, actually.
Thanks for the input.
Okay, but I was actually kind of sort of looking forward to seeing Azerbaijan in Junior Eurovision, not because it was in Armenia, but because, like, if you look at Eurovision nerd, honestly, on all things Eurovision, and if you look at like the past track record of both Georgia and Armenia, two of the other main Caucasus countries, and Russia, if you want to count them, they all have a really fantastic track record at the Eurovision. I mean, Georgia has won 3 times, and Armenia has won twice. The best result we've gotten was last year, 5th place. So considering we got our best result last year, I was thinking, man, if Armenia wasn't hosting this contest, chances are we actually could have taken part this year.
Thanks, Joseph. Yeah, the powerhouses of Junior Eurovision. Azerbaijan needs to catch up, I guess.
And as for all the Armenians in the chat, I wish you all the best of luck on tomorrow's show. It's going to be unforgettable.
Thank you.
Are you, Joseph, part of the fan club of Eurovision in Azerbaijan?
I follow them, but I actually live in America, but my mom and dad are immigrants from Baku, so.
Oh, okay. No, because in our Twitter there were some people from one of the fan clubs, and they were sharing their experience that they tried to go to Eurovision.
Yeah, that's actually me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm from Azerbaijan Eurovision fan club. And as you can see, we actually tried to speak with David Arturian, if I'm not mistaken, his name is the head of delegation of Armenia. We tried to speak with him, but he just gave us like very confusing answer, telling that still it's too early to answer and they need to work with the European Broadcasting Union. And we tried to reach out to Ibu actually. Normally they do answer our emails, but unfortunately they just refuse to answer, I guess. And also if your country is not participating at the contest, you need to go to as international media. And we really didn't know that how we can actually approach this. We can also choose different country. For example, we can go with the Georgian broadcaster or Ukrainian or even Polish one, but no one actually provide us the safety. We cannot go just saying that, hey, we're international media, but we're from Azerbaijan. So that's why we did our best to try reach out to people who are responsible for this, but it was again, it was a dead end and we didn't manage to go actually. But we were like, there were people from our fan club who was ready actually to go. And even because it's international fan club, other fan clubs did, and we are still working with them, trying to, get some material from Armenia. But unfortunately, we would love to actually go, but they didn't work on.
Yeah, I actually feel like I did something that I feel like a lot of Azeris would condemn, because my cousin, her childhood best friend, was actually was first born and raised in Kapan before she moved to Brooklyn. And honestly, when Kami Kami came out, I immediately sent that song to her and she loved it. And then a couple days later, after the show, my mom was delivering her a cake and we congratulated Susie. Susie's her name. And this year, because it was in Armenia, Susie actually asked me to help her get her mom and her cousin some tickets to tomorrow's show at the Karen Demircian complex. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this as long as they don't know. But unfortunately, we couldn't get the tickets on time because all the tickets were sold out.
Yeah, the tickets sold out really, really fast, actually. I was also kind of surprised.
I actually would have if it wasn't for my mom and dad, I actually would have sort of loved to be there. I mean, did you see the opening ceremony? Oh, who am I kidding? I'm pretty sure everyone in Armenia saw the opening ceremony.
Well, I think the Eurovision fan club is like a huge powerhouse of people. So who knows? Maybe if the contest representatives can't take part of the Eurovision taking place in the other country, at least the fan clubs, I'm sure, now that you have already gone through this negative experience of not being able to participate because of the broadcasting union, whatever, you have this negative experience, and maybe for the next time when it happens, you'll be able to organize it differently. And also maybe the Armenians, if Baku wins next year, I mean if Azerbaijan wins next year, they could also go, even if there's no representative. Who knows? Hopeful thinking.
Honestly,
I guess.
I just hope we try everything. I just hope Azerbaijan tries everything if they win.
We have a question from Gönül. Maybe you can ask it yourself if you want, and you can ask it to both of them. afternoon. Is that okay with you? Okay. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you are hearing me. My question is to Lucia. I want to ask her which Azerbaijani Eurovision song is her favorite. Thank you very much.
Manul, I know that I absolutely loved one of the singers. I think it was last year, but I don't remember the name.
FND.
Was it? It was. I know how he looked. He's a very cute guy with
Nadir.
with like, what was the name? If you tell the name, maybe I'll remember. What is it? What was the previous one?
Nadir
Edit.
Rustamli.
Edit. Maybe.
Okay, I will answer this question. I'll just have to do some search, so I can tell exactly. And I think he had an amazing voice, and the music video was great. But I also want to be completely transparent with you. I don't watch every year. I don't watch it. I'm not following Eurovision every year religiously, because I was like a bookworm for all this years, writing the dissertation and you know, with patients and everything. So I kind of have a different career going on simultaneously. But I remember that guy because he was great. I will get back to you. Give me a few minutes, Conal. Okay, let me just dig on my phone. I'll get you the name.
And if I may, I'll ask the same question to Narguiz. Do you have a favorite Armenian song from Eurovision?
No, to be honest, I don't. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit with Lucia in the sense that I'm trying to remember. I mean, Armenia didn't participate in recent years. Well, you know, and then there's participate. I can't think of. Yeah, I can't think that of Armenian song that I thought was great that I remember. I'm also with Lucia in the sense that I don't watch it every year, and I think the hardcore Eurovision fans will be really disappointed. There's a psychologist and a lawyer here sitting talking about Eurovision. So you guys probably, I'm sure the other Azerbaijanis on this call have a much better reference point than I do.
Sorry for disturb. Okay, I will say there was a song, Armenian song in Eurovision. It was very popular here in Turkey. I'm living in Turkey. It was a Can Can song, and yeah, it was very popular. Just wanted to say that.
Inga and Nush,
That was
actually.
so nostalgic.
Yeah, they represent Armenia back in Russia, Moscow, and this song was actually quite popular in Azerbaijan back then as well. And even there was a huge drama back in then that Azerbaijanis actually voted for this song.
Konul, I'm getting back to you. Narguiz Rustamli, Fade to Black. I think he was amazing. The voice, the everything, great. For the Armenians one though, Rosalind, by the way, she came to America recently, performed in American shows.
I love Rosalind.
Yeah, it was, and the song was perfect too. It was so catchy, easy, you know, and she had a huge success here as well. So
I think that only makes it appropriate for her to perform at the Junior Eurovision tomorrow.
is she performing really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, I feel like it's appropriate because I feel like it'll also kind of teach the kids that, like, I'm pretty sure that, like, not every kid knows that this song was originally representing Armenia at the Eurovision. A lot of people just found it from TikTok.
Yeah, and I can totally see how kids can relate to the song. Like, it's so catchy. 1, 2, you know, like it's it can be as well like a kid's song as well. So
I first thought of it as like a campfire song.
Yeah.
Well, actually, and since you mentioned Nadir, he's one of those, you know, positive examples we have had in these last editions, where he said that one of his favorite songs was Rosalind, and that he wished her the best. And also, I just wanted to mention, because it didn't come up, but it's really curious that there was this year where Sirusho, when she presented the points of Armenia, and she was holding the We Are Our Mountains monument, which was controversial, caused a controversy with Azerbaijan. At that same moment, when she was presenting the points of Armenia with the monument in Karabakh, it was the only year that Armenia actually gave votes to Azerbaijan, even if it was only one.
I was very little. I was very little, so obviously I didn't know what was going on back then. It was 2009 was the first year I ever watched Eurovision. So obviously I wasn't quite sure what was happening. I did not know which countries liked each other, which countries hated each other. I wasn't really good at geography at the time, so I couldn't tell who would vote for who. So they just voted because they liked the song, and it's not even always was like a banger, and is still a banger. My mom had that as her ringtone for the longest time.
Okay.
I would also like to add that that year Azerbaijan was represented by Aysel and Arash, and Arash is also very famous in Iran. And Armenia, specifically like in spring, there's a lot of influx from Iran into Armenia, like a lot of Iranians come to Armenia. And I loved that Armenia just, like Iranians in Armenia just voted for Azerbaijan because they liked the singer, that it was popular in their country, and didn't care at all about this whole rivalry thingy that was going on, this whole pettiness. They just voted for Azerbaijan. And actually that 1 point for Azerbaijan was the combined points of like Armenian juries who marked them down for sure, and the Armenian televote. So we can assume that the Armenian televote for Azerbaijan was actually even higher than 1 point.
According to Wikipedia, in that year in the televotes, only 43 people voted for Can that lived in Azerbaijan, compared to 1,065 Armenians who voted for Always.
That's great.
Okay, so thank you all for this exciting exchange of Eurovision facts and all these opinions as well. I think it's been really interesting. We're reaching the end of our meeting. So I wanted to thank everybody who's joined us, and also particularly our guests today, Lucia and Narguiz, and our hosts, Turan and Adam. And just wanted to invite you to say some goodbye words before we wrap things up. So Lucia, you wanna say some short words before we leave?
So, thank you, Diego. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate all of you. Narguiz, it's been a pleasure meeting you after 10 years. Turan, thank you so much for your presence. I know you have a lot to say, and I wish we would communicate more. And Adam, thank you. I really appreciate everyone, guys. You know, Ricardo, I see Arhan, Joseph, everyone I see, Kono, OJ, you know, all of you. Lilit Mansourian is actually my co-worker. So I invited a lot of people as well on my side, as many as I could within a few days. Our audience, thank you for taking time out of Saturday and actually making, prioritizing events like Garden Voices, because we truly need more people here, and we truly need to dialogue, to engage in a quiet, quality dialogue where everyone is accepted, respected, and loved. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lucia. Narguiz, some final words?
Yes, thank you, guys. I agree with Lucia. You've been amazing hosts, and this is such a valuable platform. And look at that. Joseph, I think you should be on the next edition. In fact, I think you should have been instead of us, because I have a feeling you know a lot more about Eurovision than I do. No, it's been a great experience. I didn't doubt that it would be. Aram, I think you and I have interacted on Twitter some time ago. I have a feeling that has happened, but it's been a pleasure. And I hope that there will be more platforms like this, and there will be more talks like this, and people will start seeing each other, really seeing and recognizing each other as humans. And I truly believe that the more that happens, the more progress there will be between nations. So.
Narguiz, was that the picture you were talking about that you said you didn't like that they put out?
Sorry?
Was that the picture you were talking about that you said they didn't?
No. The announcement picture, you know, when they just announced us as hosts.
Yeah.
That picture I didn't like. No, this one was nice.
Okay.
Thanks. And Aram, Turan, you want to say some last words before we close it?
Sure. Nargis, yeah, we might have interacted on Twitter before, because I also, like, when I saw your name, I was like, yeah, I've seen her before somewhere. So like your name was very familiar, and I thought, yeah, it's definitely from Twitter, because I've been on Twitter very actively for 2 years. You can guess why. But yeah, it was also a pleasure for me to host this event. Thank you, Nargis, and thank you, Lucia. It was a pleasure for me to meet both of you and listen to your side of the story and listen to you talk about Eurovision and war, and I would like to also thank everyone who organized the event, Bright Garden Voices, Diego, Arnold, and everyone who came, and of course Duran, my co-host. Thank you.
I want to also thank you to Lucina and Nargis for participating this meeting, and of course Diego and my co-host Aram. It has been a pleasure, and it was much more interesting than I expected. I loved it. Thank you for participating. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you everybody, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.